is immense. I love this industry so much, and I think that we're very privileged to have been in it. Sure, the economics are terrible at the moment, but we still have got a career in a really amazing part of the economy.
Yeah. I think the economics were better for the people at the top in the past.
As it always is.
There's almost nobody listed in the media sector of the JSE anymore. Okay. So we touched briefly on, thanks very much, Rob. So we touched briefly on the local versus the national, and I think it is a big problem in thinking about media is that there is a perception that the view from the cities and even from the suburbs always dominates. And it forgets what we're going to be talking about now, the local and the hyperlocal. And I'm really absolutely fascinated, having lived in Grahamstown, which is out there in the Bundus, and had another view of media. I want to go to Shirley Govender now, who's from the AIP, and has in fact run three local publications. Hyperlocal, I think, is. So can you tell us from your perspective, what makes for success? And is it possible to make the local successful, given that the revenue streams are not great at the local level? In other words, that was the problem that I always heard when I was involved with Grocot's Mail, is that the local businesses didn't have that much money to spend on advertising, and the national wasn't. So there was a local Pick and Pay in Grahamstown, but it didn't really spend that much money. I mean, Pick and Pay National didn't spend money. It was the local Pick and Pay. So what is the financial situation of local publications?
Look, I think right now we are all on our knees. I mean, we're in the eye of the storm when it comes to sustainability. I started my first publication in 1992. It was called Southern Globe. And, back then I could sell a 16-page in a day on my own. Now it takes me 2 weeks to sell for one, for whichever publication it is. So the local economy, I specialize in township newspapers. Okay. So we have a whole different ball game. Businesses won't advertise. There's no money. There's a depressed economy. They have their own dynamics. Right. So I have to look out to government, to corporates, and so on, to sustain my publications. Right. There is a fair amount of advertising coming in from the local Orange Farm or Lenasia or wherever, but it's not enough to sustain us. Right. And then we found that in the last, I think, in about 2017, we started feeling the decline in our anchor advertisers, like the Tile Africas and all of that. So they started pulling back. Because if I look at my situation now, I get government ads 4 times a year. Yet, I pride myself on being the person who's informing and educating, helping my readers navigate their lives. Because it's hyper-local. They need to know when the IDP meeting is, or whatever the case may be. And we're running that. We are the cheerleaders for all of this. But so it's really tough right now.
Do you think that there might be the prospect, and I do say this very warily, of direct government funding in some form? Say an independently, independent organization that supplies money to the AIP or to independent, along the lines of the MDDA, shall we say. Do you think there's any, and what about the MDDA?
I'm just so afraid if I say something now, I'm never going to get funded from them.
You don't have to answer that question.
Kate Skinner is sitting in the room.
Yeah.
She has done an amazing job unlocking opportunities for us. Right. So, for example, I'm on the 2024 cohort with Amplify SA. Okay. So there's grant funding there in terms of technology or writing. So for me as an independent, I'm grabbing every opportunity to empower my newsroom and my business. Okay. So we need to tie government down. Because like I said, if we're going to be their cheerleaders, then for God's sake, do something, help us. Mm-hmm. It's my responsibility to inform and educate my readers. Mm-hmm. But at least come to the party with some kind of support, because we're also nation building.
Yes.
We're building thriving, resilient communities. We are we're helping them navigate their lives every day. But I mean, we're on our own with that.
Yes.
So it becomes it's frustrating.
Yes.
So whether it's MDDA, whether it's whoever's, but corporates, your bigger companies,
Yes.
you know, that they need to take responsibility as well.
Yes.
I mean, I'd like to see policy changes at government, at legislation level. We need to start setting up partnerships and collaborations with government. Show them our efforts. Create what's the word? Some kind of thing that's a document that's going to show them that, look, these are the things that we're doing.
Yes. Yes.
And get them involved. They can run pilot projects within the smaller newsrooms in the townships.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities that they can step in.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to know how to tile your bathroom, that's what hyper-local newspapers do. We're not looking at the JSC and stuff, you know. But it's relevant, important stuff for my market.
Yes.
So we need them to come in. I mean, if there's anybody in the room that can go out there and say, listen, we've got 150 publications with the Association of Independent Publishers that are we're all in trying to build our communities all over the country, pushing out like 4,000 or 5 million copies a month. That's a lot of newspaper.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of education going out.
Yes. Yes.
So all we're saying is, let's look at collaboration, let's look at partnerships, and start engaging in more conversations around this, whether it's a round table, getting everybody together, tech companies,
Yes.
or the opportunities are there. They just need to, I mean, we are available
Yes.
to have a conversation.
Well, yeah.
So please come and let's talk about this, because if I mean, this is a Media Freedom Festival. If I were to close my 3 newspapers, Orange Farm News, Walkerville and Savannah City Times, and Globe Post. So we are the publications, we are the only voices in those communities. How do people make informed decisions? How do we run? We talk about democracy?
Do you think you're giving a voice to the people in those communities? In other words,
Absolutely, we amplify.
do they write for you? And
Yeah,
okay.
we're amplifying voices. That's what we do.
Okay. Yeah.
So I take a lot of pride in being a local community newspaper publisher.
Right.
It's a heart-centered activity. My newsroom is a sacred space because I'm building communities from the bottom up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'd really like to have that kind of support.
Yeah. I don't think people, realize the importance of local newspapers in the sense of discovering things that can't be done from the centre. I just wanted to ask, do you think that what might help you is a kind of a renewed SAPA that that didn't cost money, that might actually provide some copy as a kind of a backup? Would that help?
I think there's a huge misconception around copy
Okay.
and advertising.
Yes. Yes.
I need advertising to drive my businesses. I need
Right.
advertising to drive strategy. I need
Right.
advertising to drive AI and innovation in my business models
right,
and my newsroom. Copy is abundant.
Okay. All right.
Because we are so invested in those communities, we work, we live in those communities. So I have more copy than I need
Right.
at any given time.
Right.
And they're all organic, 95% organic material.
Yeah. Just something that occurs to me as you're talking. I mean, there's legislation and a big, part of the legislation is keeping print and broadcasting separate. If you had access to, say, running a radio station as part of your local newspaper group, would that help in getting revenue?
Perhaps yes. I think it's about time that we got together as community media, TV, print, and radio.
Right.
Because together we can command far more attention in terms of our needs.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
And
it
also,
just,
if I may add,
Yes.
that we need to stop seeing ourselves as competition. That's where the separation happens. So we're all standing in our isolated little spaces, but expecting help. So
But
you're going to
sorry?
get certain sectors getting help, and I'm sitting in Indonesia South, and I'm wondering why on earth am I battling? They've got, I'm doing all this amazing work, but I'm not getting any funding.
Okay. Who's doing this amazing work? Sorry, I just didn't.
My newsroom,
Oh, right.
or as a hyperlocal newspaper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a fascinating thing. When I was in Grahamstown, I actually saw the decline of Grocot's Mail, and I really couldn't fit. Well, this is an interesting thing. Sometimes management of news media is the key to success or failure. And I mean, what do you think aid can be given to the people like yourself who manage these local newspapers?
Look, for me, pilot projects work very well because you have a focused project. There's funding coming in from that. Then you're accountable on the basics of that project. There's objectives to be met, and that's easy for someone to measure, a sponsor, to measure that project,
Yeah.
and look at and then see the value of my products.
Right. Rather than sort of funding.
Just,
Yeah.
But we're in real trouble right now.
Okay.
So
Well, what keeps you going? Why haven't you done something else?
I think, look, one of the core for me, I get a lot of satisfaction in that. One of the core principles in my business is to be putting good out there, to change the world, to inform, to educate.
Yeah.
And that keeps me going. So I'm answering your question. I tend to get lost.
Yeah, no, I am.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
You are.
So I'm sorry. Yeah. So like I said earlier, it's very heart-centered
Yes.
effort, and that's what drives us to keep printing.
Yes.
And to do what we need to do. Our communities, our readers need it.
Yes.
So we are not. If there isn't an enabling environment
Yes.
for us to work in,
Yes.
then what happens to our communities?
Yes. Yes.
So we need the freedom, we need the funding
Yeah.
to have the freedom to be able to accomplish our mission and vision in
Yeah.
terms of local information and as community newspapers.
We're talking about geographic communities here.
You're looking at your whether it's Orange Farm, whether it's Ennerdale, wherever it may be.
Because there's another meaning to community being like Muslim news or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we cater for everything, especially with hyperlocal.
Yeah.
There's no specific, okay, I'm Christian, I'm Muslim,
Okay.
or I'm whoever you may be.
Okay.
You're being serviced by the publication because it's a door, well, in my case, it's a door-to-door.
Yes. Yes. No, it's a fascinating business. Where did you get the startup capital to do
I
this?
didn't.
You didn't.
I started Southern Globe because Lenasia South was, there was so much injustice around that we faced as residents because we were dumped on the deepest south of Joburg
Yeah.
because we were Indian or any non-white,
Yeah.
and that's why I started the paper because we needed a voice. We needed to have accountability. We didn't even have no SABC transmitters, no post office, no police station, one shopping center, and they were like 4,000 people. So, that's how I was driven to start because it was an anti-apartheid voice initially,
Right.
but turned into a water and lights guard dog, watchdog. That was the initial role.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up starting that. Just passionate about wanting to make a difference, to change.
Okay. So just finally, I mean, have you got any ideas of something that, you say you're on your knees, that might help immediately to get you off?
Look, I've started already.
Okay.
Okay, so apart from the newspapers, for example, we looked at what our advertisers needed. So they needed, for example, printing of your pamphlets weekly.
Okay, right.
So I have a little, I would print pamphlets. I still do. We're printing your A3 inserts. We do the design work. We sometimes publish that in the newspapers. I do branding on the side. It's not something that happens all the time, but it's something I'm open to innovation. I'm open to new business products. The success to us as hyperlocal papers is to diversify. If you don't, you're dead in the water.
Okay. Right.
So that's what I've done. We saw this happening in 2017 already.
Okay.
So we started a range of products.
Okay.
So for example, I've got like a portfolio of a retail franchisees where I do their Facebook marketing.
Okay.
So we've got different aspects, but that all came in purely, and all started from Southern Globe.
Ah, okay.
You see, and it's the only way. It basically cross-subsidizes the newspapers. I can't afford to close those papers.
Yes.
Apart from my own passion, there's emotional attachment.
Right.
So, so there's lots of other little things that we're doing, and all the publishers are doing. We've got some of our publishers are eventing. They do newsletters.
Yeah.
So everybody's diversifying
Yeah.
and introducing new products. And also with the advent of the digitization, that's also another revenue stream for the publishers as well. So as I sit here, I'm speaking not just about me, but about the other 150 publishers with the AIP.
Yeah. Not only with the AIP, I think everybody
as
has to
well.
diversify. Yeah.
100%.
Though the danger of that is that your third stream income can be so successful that you just forget about the newspaper. So, thank you very much. Thanks for that perspective. And I now want to move to Gillian, who is in the Daily Maverick hot seat. A fascinating business model, a fascinating media model in that you have membership, and you have ads, and you have donors as well. So you have 3 streams of income, plus events and whatever else, and books and so forth. So, I mean, one of the things that's really interesting is how Daily Maverick came from not entirely nowhere, because I know Branko was running a magazine before he went online, but came from almost nowhere to be in one of the top online publishers in terms of, sorry. I'm putting myself on it, yeah. Okay. Don't ever buy a Show Me Redmi phone, by the way. They don't shut off. Just got to power it off. Shut up. Go and drown it somewhere. Okay, so, yeah. So, I mean, it's been fascinating for me to see. And my personal perspective is that the magic behind this is not magic, it's audience. What do you think has been the key factor in attracting the audience that you have? And that audience is some of them prepared to actually donate individual. I mean, I was a Daily Maverick member until fairly recently. Nothing to do with the publications, my own cash flow problem. So what do you think is your unique selling point, if you like? What makes the Daily Maverick different?
Well, I think it's really about the journalism. We put a lot of effort into the kind of journalism that we do. Our journalism has to be relevant. Shirley is talking about helping people navigate life. Navigate life is one of those elements that we think about when we're doing our journalism. The other is, how do we protect democracy? And by focusing and being very intentional about what it is that we want to put out into the world, yes, is key in building an audience. They need to find that what you're doing is relevant to their lives, yes, yeah, and adds value. Rob, you spoke about adding value. There's so much out there, and at the end of the day, how do you want your reader to spend time with you is to say, we've got something of value that's going to add value to your life, that's going to help you have that conversation over the beer at the Braai on the weekend and come across as knowing something. Daily Maverick's very much a mission-driven organization. Our mission is to defend truth, and to do that is to help people know more and know better. And so it's been hyper-focused on what it is that we are delivering at the end of the day that helps grow that audience.
Okay. And how much do you think the opinion pieces, the so-called opinionista pieces, how much has that been a part of your success? I mean, that does sort of broaden not only the potential audience, but also the number of people you can tap into. Has that really been essential, or is it just an add-on?
If we go back to the start of Daily Maverick, the opinionista and that kind of section was really how we grew in terms of the amount of content we were putting out. Okay. When we first started, we probably had about 4 journalists and a dog writing for the publication. they were very experienced journalists, but to put out a variety of content,
Yes.
the opinionista section provided that. At the moment, I would say that it's both blessing and a curse, because everybody has an opinion now and wants to put it out. So to be again intentional and triage what it is that you're putting out there can take a lot of drain on the strained resources, but it does allow for a variety of views to come forward.
Yeah. So you've got a much bigger staff now. How does it compare to, say, one of the legacy publishers, given that you also put out a newspaper?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at, unfortunately, we've just gone through a retrenchment process the first time in 15 years. It wasn't an easy decision to take, but even in that environment, we are sitting with about 35 journalists that are writing for Daily Maverick. That's across from an intern to somebody with over 30 years of experience. And so I think if one looks at the newsrooms of legacy newspapers, you would say that Daily Maverick and News 24 are amongst the biggest in that regard.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, News 24 has got a massive online audience. It dwarfs everybody else. But
Our online journalists write for the paper as well. There isn't a specific newsroom for the paper itself.
yes, yeah, that's quite common. Though I recently read of a publication, I think in Australia, which actually split the newsroom from online only, or online and print, into two separate newsrooms to give them better focus. So maybe you'll think of that in the future. So, I mean, the newspaper is very successful in the sense that it's one of the only newspapers actually increased circulation. Do you? Is it profitable?
We haven't made a profit yet.
Okay.
We are hopeful that we will get there, at least break even at some point in the very soon future. It's showing that it's serving a reader need for something that is meaty, that gives pause during the week, that takes you away from the screen.
Yes.
I think it's a highly curated product of excellent journalism.
Yes.
That allows people some time away from the screen and sit and engage with something that is adding value.
It's got good crosswords, I must say. So as I say, it's about the audience. Now, I'll ask you the same question I asked Rob. Gauging audience, you use all the tools available, but I think Rob made a very important point, instinct as a journalist. You know, how much do you pay? So if you're as a journalist, I mean, most of us went into the business because we wanted to say something. In my time, it's because we wanted to say apartheid was bad, among other things. But you also have to cater for what the audience needs. How do you get that balance, what the audience wants? So the audience might want lots of sport, and you might want to tell them something very important about the economy. How do you get that in your head? How do you balance that?
So we've got a strategy document called Securing Our Future. Okay. And one of the arms of Securing Our Future is doing data right. And that's not data for clicks and the like. It's understanding what the data is telling us about the journalism that we're doing, about the audience, about how they're engaging with it, about where we need to present the journalism, not to tell us what we should be doing, but how to reach them. Okay. I think data is there for us to use to improve our accessibility of our journalism. Yeah. We can write a 10,000-word investigative piece that is going to set the world alight, that will change things, that will move the needle. Yeah. But if it's not been read, what is the point? Right. So yes, do the 10,000 piece, but actually our audience is saying, we want to see something in video. So let's create a product that will reach that particular audience. Yeah. If you want to move the needle, you have to make your journalism accessible to people where they are, not where you are.
Have you experimented with video? I mean, it's one of the bright new shiny things that people have talked about some years ago. It would save the media, sort of, going to video online as well as having print. Have you experimented with video? I can't remember.
We have. It's actually quite a new sort of line for us that is showing really good promise. We initially started with the very sort of short YouTube videos. Yeah. They did well. But we've sort of found a sweet spot between 8 and 15 minutes of mini documentaries around particular stories that audience is really lapping up. in a big way. Now it's to find a way to fund that and to draw in the advertising for it to keep it going. And as always, it's done with very stretched resources.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the theme for all newsrooms now, is stretched resources. They never were great in the past, but they're even worse now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do is, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is obviously I want to give a chance to the audience to actually ask questions of our panelists now. Let's do that. Have we got a roving mic? Okay, there's one there. Have we got a roving mic, or you can... Roving mic? It's coming. Okay.
Hi, thanks. It's Paul. Sorry about that. Hi, it's Paul. I've got an observation and then a spitball type question. The observation is, prior to COVID, my local newspaper, I live at the beach in Jeffreys Bay, so we had one of the regionals, as the large media houses call them. That publication had one full-time equivalent person performing journalism functions. The editor was the writer of 70% of stories, and the other 30% was kind of a little bit of freelance here and there. But at the end of the day, it comes down to one full-time equivalent performing journalism function and 4 members of staff in the commercial, trying to get advertisers and so on and so forth. That struck me as a major problem, even if you consider access to, effectively a press syndication, because it's in the Media 24 group. I don't understand how we can get good community news, and whether we're talking about an area-defined community or an interest-defined community, or however one wants to define community. If the ratio of people performing an actual journalistic function and the number of people performing an actual editorial function, which I do think it's important to separate those two things. There is a difference between writing a story and making a call as to newsworthiness. If that ratio is wrong, I cannot see us getting out of a vicious cycle in which a community newspaper or regional, or however it's called, is just put into an absolute trap. Because even if you can, by having 4 members of staff, get the local businesses to sponsor, it can't work. And similarly, a few years ago, after its acquisition by Rhodes University, Grocot's, was put in the perilous position of its newsroom largely serving the interests of the university.
It is.
And again, that raises the question of whether or not there is an adequate regard for the number of full-time equivalent performance of a journalistic function versus any sort of business interests, or say not business interests, but generating revenue. That side of it. The spitball that I'm wanting to put forward is, would it be in any way conceivable to, instead of trying to relaunch the wire service type mechanism that was SAPA, to actually have almost a advertorial wire, in other words, a mechanism by which community publications and so on can basically feed in adverts into their platform. I mean, Google has made good money out of AdSense, so I mean that side of it fits in, but with the added benefit of being able to upstream local news, because hyperlocal news isn't just of interest to people in that locality. I mean, I haven't lived in Grahamstown in years, but hyperlocal news articles and news interest in Grahamstown is of interest to me. And really well-written local stories are well-read by, outside of the context. So that's the spitball. And the complaint that I want to make is Grahamstown is not rural. It's a buzzing metropolitan.
Yes, that's what we thought, yes. Yeah. Well, surely, I mean, so that's the question. Do you need all these other people to get the revenue, do the ads and whatever? What is your perspective?
Oh, really? That would be my ideal world.
That you don't have those?
No, we can't.
Yeah.
We can't afford it.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual, and it's been like that for the last God knows how many decades, that all these little community newsrooms, everybody did everything.
Okay, yes, that's right.
It is not unusual. It's
Okay.
normal practice, purely because of the expenses. Unless you're a Media 24
Okay.
or a Caxton, then
Yeah.
you can have specialized. I mean, we've got somebody who's doing graphic designing, and if there's an accident down the road, everybody gets into the off go. It doesn't matter what you're doing in the office,
Yes.
or your job title.
Yeah.
But that's the excitement about having our kind of media. I get what you're saying, focused attention and all of that. But it works for us. It's been working for me for 32 years.
Okay. On the you know, the business mechanics of a newspaper are different from online. So the thing about newspapers is they do bring in revenue. That the revenue you get from ads is much higher than anything you can get online. So it's good to have, you know, it's worthwhile having a newspaper if you have a big enough circulation to have enough advertisers. But the thing is, the model is broken. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, next question. Who's next? Who wants to be next? In the front.
Khotsong, I am Bula, and I wanted to ask the question, particularly with, as well, we said publications like Currency, when you go online, you're not just competing nationally, you are competing globally. The newsroom, and I think we've had the conversation as well in the last couple of days, that newsrooms unfunded in journalism is largely unattractive compared to other career paths. And so this is not just a newsroom conversation, but it's also a journalist's conversation. Now, part of the challenge around this is the social media companies like Meta and others that contribute to newsrooms emptying out. We've seen other countries holding such companies to account, and policies put in place, quote unquote, in some ways go to war to say you aren't allowed to function in the country until you come to some kind of agreement with government. Now, should South Africa or the South African government be doing something similar? Would this help publications on stage and others? Yeah, I think that's the question.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to answer that. I mean, I wouldn't be too hostile to the US social media companies. We might have a coup here, you know. But yeah, look, I mean, that's what the Competition Commission inquiry is about, as far as I can understand. And you're talking about the Australian legislation. Canada has tried something similar. It's still fairly fluid. There's always the prospect that the social media companies will say, well, fine, we'll just close down and we'll see how your citizens feel about that. Or we won't link to any news at all. So that's fine, but that means that all the news publications who rely on getting traffic from social media are punished. So I think it's quite a complex question, not one that's going to be answered easily. I think that we have people in the audience who might be able to answer that better than, but if any of the participants would like to answer.
May I? Okay, so last year, I was part of a delegation, an AIP publisher delegation to the US. And we found that the US media is basically held up by community newspapers. All right. So you'll find that what I found is that, like the towns would have, there is a commitment from business. There's a commitment from the local council to ensure that those newspapers thrive. So I get what the speaker said. That would be great if we could get the government and local government to come in and legislate such a thing. There should be. We need our local voices.
Not social media, yeah. Good. Another question? Yeah, please, the guy.
Okay, my name is Christo Morolong. I think it's a tricky question I want to ask to the panel, especially Shelley. You're mentioning alternative funding models, and would you, and I mean, I'm listening to you coming much more from an activist, you know, I mean, background. Would you look into probably politics, you know, having started your own political organization? I mean, Zila was a journalist before she was in DA, you know. She's the one who broke Steve Biko's story that he died in detention. And I mean, Daily Maverick, they're sitting at, you guys are sitting at 30,000 subscribers and readers. I mean, yeah, I mean, if people were to vote for you, surely you could get a seat in parliament, you know. Yeah, so looking at, and I mean, you mentioned events, you know, the IDP sessions in Bezos, which government normally does, and there's a budget for that, you know. Would you maybe then take up that? I mean, there's issues now, water issues in Lenasia, you know, currently. And those are, I mean, yeah, I think that's a very cheeky question.
Yeah, to be honest, I die-hard ANC activist over the years, and I got so frustrated because as a newspaper, we were doing all the councillors' work. So somebody had a burst pipe, we were logging calls with Joburg Water. And so eventually, when the DA came to me, I accepted their offer to stand as a local councillor for Ward 120. And that was out of sheer frustration. I am not a politician. I don't even like that world. It's just far too toxic for me. So, but anyway, I didn't win the election. It was the second highest votes in the area. But I would not do it again. I just found it compromised me in some way. I don't know what it was, but I don't mind doing the eventing for whoever it may be, as long as I'm getting paid for that. I'm not taking party sides, even if I'm hosting something like that or organizing it. But I personally, I won't. I've been there, done that, and I can't.
In order for democracy to function, you need a viable press. And if we all sign up to be politicians, then we are not going to be servicing our needs of our audience.
Yeah. And I think I disappointed a lot of people when I did that. They thought I was very capable, but I betrayed where I come from. So I saw that, and it affected my newspaper.
Other questions?
Yeah, hi.
Who's got the mic?
Oh, yeah, I was.
Okay,
the next
no,
one.
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm Simon. I'm a colleague to Shelley. I'm also a member of AIP. I think one addition that I just need to mention, when we say community media, in our profiles of the printers of our publishers that we have, we actually have communities, religious communities. We have a spectrum of languages across the 11 languages. So in response to the gentleman earlier to say that, how can you fit into one system? A vendor rural newspaper is a standalone in that community. So it's really difficult to rally national resources when you are a Sotho paper based in a certain community. So these are some of the challenges that we face. And when we say communities, there is even a publication that focuses just solely on Muslim as a religion news. Then there's a KZN paper that focuses on religion only. So those isolated communities, how do you rally that voice together? That's quite the challenge. But we are representative of the 11 languages across the spectrum, and we don't necessarily fit into the national news stream in some cases, because one will be some language, maybe a Hottentot, in the Northern Cape, and they serve that particular community very well. So that becomes the challenge.
Kate? Stay out of politics.
Yeah, so yeah. So it's more a comment, but it's just picking up on what Shirley's been saying and Simon, and just the idea that I think that one of the things that I do think that we potentially have a lot of power with is collective services. And I think that, I thought what Shirley was saying was very powerful about the fact that, we've got a lot of copy. So that's not the problem. It's really is the funding. And one of the things that we're working on as AIP is in fact, some kind of advertising agency, some kind of mechanism to actually get advertising into our publications, at a kind of national level and also at a kind of provincial level. And I loved your idea about advertorials. I think it's brilliant. So it's being a bit more, it's not just about putting straight adverts into publications, but also advertorials. I mean, there are tons of development organizations. There are tons of various corporates and things that want to put across various messages. And it's thinking creatively around how to get that out there. But the thing which I think is interesting is that people often say, well, we're going to give you all of this information, but just cover it for free. And we're like, no, actually, we're not going to cover it for free. Like, you're getting a huge amount of benefit out of us putting it into our publications, translating it, and we translate it into the particular dialects of our particular areas. And so we're saying that's what we want to do. So I think we really struggled with advertising, absolutely. But I think there's something interesting there. And it's just to put that out there and just to also ask people on the panel, I mean, what do they think, in terms of that kind of collective power of advertising? And maybe, as I say, thinking a bit more creatively, and maybe just one last tiny point, just this idea of, potentially also this collaboration between the media in terms of putting on an event, and bringing the corporates and getting funding in that way. Thanks.
Okay. That's an interesting thought. A monopsony is the economics term. What does the panel think of collective efforts at advertising? Bringing in advertising.
I think there's definitely potential in that. If you think of advertorials of a Department of Health that wants to reach a broader readership, and the community-based newspaper is that place that's going to be able to reach right down to grassroots. And so if you had a public service advertorial that needed to go out, let's say it's COVID, and you're trying to get your messaging out, that is a viable option, to do it as a collective, and you put together your pricing models because you've got 150 publications that this can go into. Definitely worth pursuing.
I think
sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's a great idea as well. I mean, I think that coming from a group of publications that all shared an advertising department, it needs to be well managed, as opposed to the largest publications always getting the bulk of it and advertising people saying, well, this publication will get the most, and then this, and it needs to be very well managed. But I think it's very promising. We've seen talk about readers don't want to pay. I think the advertisers are used to getting stuff for free. They thought the digital world means, content is now, people want content. So they'll, I think some of the retailers they'll say, write about our wine for us. Now there's zero public interest in that. And mate, why don't you just advertise for this? No, we want the coverage for free because they got used to it. So I think it's educating the advertisers about their responsibility in this, which is also important.
Shirley?
Yeah, I've gotten so tired of everybody expecting us to do things for free. And so I now stop. I won't do it. I can't have a news channel coming to me and saying, listen, can you do that? I can't. I'm trying to pay salaries right now. And you've got this huge corporation that you're running. So no, everybody must pay for everything. The one thing I want to mention quickly is that when we were in Ohio, you've got the Ohio News Media Association, but every association had its own advertising arm. So it was a fair play. There's no, if there was a newspaper in wherever it was, they would get that ad, or those newspapers would share those I would think, the ad spend. So that would help if these association, the advertising is attached to organizations perhaps. So there's some level of transparency, is it centralized? Otherwise it just becomes a nightmare.
All you had to do was vote for Trump, and then you got the advertising.
So we have one more question, and then I want to wrap up.
My concern, or rather question, is about, it seems that all the panelists there seem to represent individual or free market kind of ideas. Where's the other media when I heard Kate talk about collectivists, I was thinking she was going to talk about some of the old ideas of collectivists. But I wanted to just ask this question then, is that why is it that you would have trade union investment money going in to support Prime Media, trade union investment money supporting ENCA, and then I think at the same time there's a decline of internal communication with their own members, you know. So other visions, I mean, if you like, El Salto in Spain or The Intercept and others have subscription-based, but they do investigative stuff, so 60% maybe subscription and other founding models. But where's the collective conversations? Because if everyone is just trying to survive and going inwards, where's this? And I thought SABC were going to be part of the conversation because, you know, I tried to call in once in the SABC, they say, sorry, you can't intervene on that. It's a paid-for advert, you know.
Anybody have any ideas? We need to pay. Unfortunately, being a journalist is a vow of poverty, like being a monk, but you still need to get paid. So we need to find some way of raising money. And yeah, you know, there are well, I mean, if you take the investigative unit like Amabungani, it's completely donor funded, and also has some ordinary people paying money, by the way, prepared to pay money. So there is that place, and particularly in the digital space, it makes it much easier to do that because you don't have the overheads of raising, you know, money for a newspaper. But yeah, no, I think you're right. The collective. We need to think about that, but then, yeah, you know, there's also the party political aspect as well. Isaac?
Thanks. My name is Isaac Manar. I want to say something on behalf of SANEF first, and then on behalf of somebody else. Firstly, SANEF just completed what is called the Community Media Digitization Drive, which was an effort to assist 15 newsrooms, community media newsrooms, print and broadcast, to try and develop new digital futures for them, or at least parallel digital options. It's been fairly successful. Most of the participants actually came out better than when they started. But what's interesting is that we also established a community media support services website, communitymss.co.za, I think, where with the objective of providing services like web development, web hosting, hopefully in the future, what Shirley talked about, maybe advertising streams to different newsrooms, and a whole range of other services. We now, together with Mediate Media, who did this, we're now looking for funding for a further 15 or 30 or so. And I think this kind of initiative to try and just do something and make sure that we move forward is quite important. And I would love to hear also what the panel says about this kind of collaboration and if it would be useful. Secondly, I want to say on behalf of the African Investigative Journalism Conference that starts in 10 days' time at WITS, that there's going to be quite a number of sessions on funding for journalism. And also how to pitch for funding, and most or many of the global media development funders will be at the conference. So it may be a good opportunity to have chats with some of those people. Thank you.
Panel want to react?
I mean, I could just say that I think that we started and it was really useful to be part of the Amplify cohort. I think it's good to have groups of people who know how things are done and how to start. So that's fabulous. I mean, you know, we didn't know how to do. We have one person on our group who literally still uses DVDs, for whom, you know, the internet world is something completely. So it's fantastic to share those kind of lessons and what not to do. So I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, just to add to what Rob says, I mean, if each one teaches one, suddenly the information gets further along, and we don't all have to make the same mistakes to get ahead if we just start sharing information. I think it's the media for too long has been divided amongst ourselves. Yes, healthy competition needs to be there, but at the end of the day, a viable, strong, diverse media is better for all of us in the end. And so if we can help each other, if we can help Rob start Currency and give him a boost and it's better for all of us. As much as we're all trying to survive, I think the more of us that do survive, the better our country will be.
I just want to say that I wish somebody would write all of these things down. We're having all these conversations. It's happening. Every webinar I attend is about sustainability. The Nordic countries, everybody's done it already. They're still having it, yes. But can we just all get together, or somebody starts, we collate all this information. You know, I have, thanks to my association with the Solutions Journalism Network, I meet and I'm in webinars with a range of international organizations. And there's so much we can learn from them. They've been there, they've had these conversations already. So it's good, I love that we're having this conversation. But we can also look elsewhere, not necessarily in our own ecosystem. Let's look out there and see and put those ideas together, and then we can tailor sustainability options and pathways that matter to in our own spaces.
Well, thanks very much, Shirley. I'm glad you mentioned solutions journalism, because as people were talking, I was thinking, you know about this stuff. Can't you assign somebody to do an article with a solutions journalism frame to actually talk about the sustainability of the media? And I absolutely agree with you. We need to bring these ideas together, and we need to see how they apply to South Africa, because there's lots of stuff being written, but it's all over the place, and we've kind of forgotten about that. And if anybody pays me, I'll do the research. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. I'd like to not to stay our welcome. But thanks very much to the guests. I enjoyed this immensely. I think it was really useful, and we should do it again.
Thanks.
Okay.
Cool.
Bye.
We're going to take a picture of you. Right. Good evening. So we'll do some pictures of the panel, but this is the final event of the Media Freedom Festival for 2024. Are we going to give them those now? Okay, good idea. Can you bring them? These are early Christmas gifts, as you can tell. So over the last 3 days, we've had 9 events. Whoops. Don't give that man another beer. We've had 9 events in 3 days, which has been pretty amazing. We started looking at, with the launch of a report, looking at the state of freedom of expression, which was about concerning issues in South Africa. We have had 3 intimate sessions. The one today was around an online integrity ombud. Yesterday we had some very traumatic but very powerful conversations with some women journalists about what it's like being a woman and dealing with mental health in the newsroom. We've had discussions on hate speech. We've had discussions on the Media Freedom Coalition. We've had discussions on all manner of things that are going to help us protect and understand what media freedom means in South Africa. So this evening, because I know we're all anxious to get out and listen to the band and have some drinks, I'm going to just say thank you to all of the partners that made this year's Media Freedom Festival possible. And as you can see, there were a lot of them, and this just gives you some idea of meaning of collective action, right? So we want to thank our friends at the German Embassy, the Campaign for Freedom of Expression, AIP, SANEF, the GCIS, Goethe Institute, SOS Coalition, SABC, and the Press Council. And of course, our team at Media Monitoring Africa. So that's pretty amazing to have done all of this in 3 days, I think. On a direct level, I need to thank numbers of my team who are all running very low on batteries despite the number of Red Bulls that they've been having. To Browser, the Gen Zs, Bokazi and Kia, and Tabiseng, and Tombi, Musa, Lister, and Sako, Msizi, Jacques, Tumelo, Sharks, George, Weller. To Noor, to Valent, and Nyakalo, our newest member who adds to our team in various ways. To the sound team, thank you very much, and to all our vendors, and then a huge thanks to all of our speakers, our guests, our friends, and our colleagues. And then finally, a thanks to someone who's not going to be with us next year in this particular role. I hope she'll be here again next year in a slightly different role. To Nomsharo Handel, as we commonly know her. You'll be deeply missed, Handel, and your presence will be felt for a long time. With that, this is the end of the Media Freedom Festival. Piriana! Can we get some pictures of our panel and then you can have drinks?